Imagine, just for a second, that you're living in the X-Men universe, or, maybe the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Okay.
You've got this world where genetic variation isn't just some plot device, but it's the driving force of the entire story.
Right. Some people have super senses, others process information at incredible speeds.
Exactly. And some have challenges that just don't fit into the, quote, normal world.
It's a really compelling image. But the thing is, we don't need comic books to find that kind of variation. We just need to look around us.
It's so interesting you say that. We're sitting here in the Deep Dive Lab. It's January 30, 2026. And looking at the stack of research you've brought in, variation almost feels like an understatement.
It really is. It feels like we're looking at a fundamental shift in how we understand, human operating systems.
Yeah, and if you've been following the headlines for the last 12 months, the script on autism spectrum disorder, ASD, has been completely flipped.
Completely. We're talking an explosion of data, epidemiology, genetics, and this brand new report on treatment advances from, late 2025?
Right. But before we get to the sci-fi stuff, and I know we have CRISPR and AI on the docket, we have to start with the map, because the map has totally changed.
Drastically.
I'm looking at the CDC data from last year, 2025. Help me contextualize this. The prevalence is now estimated at 1 in 31 children.
1 in 31. And to give you a sense of the velocity here, back in 2020, that number was 1 in 36.
Okay, that's already a big jump.
And if you go back to the early 2000s, it was 1 in 150.
Whoa. Okay, so that isn't just a bump in the data. That is a skyrocketing trend.
It is.
So the obvious question, and I think the skeptical listener is asking this too, is, are there actually more autistic kids, or are we just, slapping a label on everything now?
That is the multi-million-dollar question. And the consensus from this literature survey is it's both.
Both. Okay.
Yes, our diagnostic criteria have widened. We're much better at spotting it. But we also can't rule out environmental factors interacting with genetics.
But regardless of the why, the result is that this is no longer a niche issue.
Not at all. Globally, we're talking about roughly 61.8 million people.
1 in 31 means pretty much every single classroom in America has an autistic student. It means every HR department has to be thinking about this.
Precisely. It's moved from special needs to standard human experience. And the biggest driver of this recent jump, it's not the boys, it's the girls.
This is the part of the research that really stopped me in my tracks. Historically, the whole narrative has been autism is a boy thing.
It has. The stats usually showed boys being diagnosed 3 or 4 times more often.
And that's still true, right?
Statistically, that gap still exists. It's about 3.4 to 1. But we're realizing that gap might be an artifact of our own ignorance. We've been looking for the male presentation of autism.
And completely missing the female one.
Exactly. It's an under-ascertainment problem. And it boils down to a phenomenon called camouflaging or masking.
I really want to drill down on this because masking sounds like something we all do, right? I mean, I put on a polite face for my mother-in-law. How is this different?
That's a fair challenge. Everyone modulates their behavior. But for an autistic woman or man, it's just more common in women. Masking isn't politeness. It is a constant high-stakes performance.
High stakes.
Think of it like being a spy deep behind enemy lines.
Right.
You're constantly analyzing the data. Is my voice too loud? Am I making enough eye contact, but not too much? Did I laugh at the right microsecond? You're intellectually calculating social moves that neurotypical people do instinctively.
So it's like driving a manual transmission versus an automatic.
Perfect analogy. And driving a manual in stop-and-go traffic for 12 hours a day is
It
exhausting.
reminds me of Clark Kent. Superman pretending to be this clumsy, normal reporter. He's constantly having to check himself. Am I walking too fast? Am I crushing this coffee cup?
It is incredibly exhausting. The research shows that while masking helps with social integration fitting in, it comes at a huge cost. High psychological distress, burnout, anxiety.
Wow.
And get this, when researchers use the Camouflaging Autistic Traits Questionnaire, or CATQ, females score significantly higher than males.
So the girls are just better actors.
Essentially, yes. They're better at observing and copying social norms, which means they slip through the diagnostic net until, they hit a breaking point.
That is heavy. So we have more people being diagnosed, a whole demographic we missed. I want to shift gears and look under the hood. You said we're looking at biology now, the hardware.
And the hardware is fascinating. We know now that autism is roughly 80 to 90% heritable.
Whoa, 90%. That's high.
It's very high, but, and this is a big but, it's not usually one single autism gene. It's polygenic.
meaning many genes.
Right. Think of it like a hand of cards. It's a combination of common genetic variations plus maybe a rare mutation or two, and then you layer on the environment.
Like what, for example?
Things like prenatal air pollution or maternal immune activation. It's a gene-environment interaction. One of the most universal experiences for autistic people, something that affects 90 to 95% of them, is sensory processing differences.
Right, the hypersensitivity or hyposensitivity.
Exactly. And to explain this, let's look at the brain's filtering system. For a neurotypical person, walking into a coffee shop is like being in a calm office. You ignore the grinder, you ignore the hum of the fridge, you focus on your friend.
Okay, simple enough.
For many autistic people, that filter is broken. It is not a calm office. It is the bridge of the Starship Enterprise during a red alert.
Shields up?
Every light is flashing, every alarm is blaring. The coffee grinder is a jackhammer, the lights are strobing, the brain is failing to gate or filter out the background noise.
And this leads us directly into the breakthroughs of 2025 and 2026, because it seems like we're finally understanding why that red alert is happening. We're not just watching the behavior, we found the volume knob.
We are entering the era of precision medicine, and it starts with a part of the brain called the reticular thalamic nucleus, or RT.
The RT. This is from that Stanford medicine study, right?
Correct. Think of the RT as the bouncer of the brain. It decides which sensory signals get in and which get blocked. Stanford found that in autism models, this bouncer isn't doing its job.
It's letting everyone in.
It's letting everything in. It's hyper-excitable.
So the club gets overcrowded instantly.
Exactly. And here's where it gets really interesting. They used a drug called Z944. It's actually an epilepsy drug.
Which makes sense, because I saw in the notes there's a huge overlap between autism and epilepsy.
About a 30% comorbidity. When they gave this drug to mice with autism traits, it reversed the symptoms. It quieted the RT, and the social behaviors came back.
So it basically woke up the bouncer and told him to start doing his job.
That's a great way to put it, yes.
That's wild. Repurposing an epilepsy drug to fix the brain's bouncer. But that's not the only drug making headlines. We need to talk about leucovorin.
Yes. This was a huge milestone back in September 2025. The FDA approved it technically as folinic acid.
Now hold on. We've had drugs for autism before, right? Like risperidone, aripiprazole. I've seen the commercials.
We have, but those were Band-Aids. They treated irritability or aggression. They didn't touch the core symptoms like communication. Leucovorin is different.
How so?
It addresses a specific biological mechanism, cerebral folate deficiency.
So it helps get folate, which is crucial for the brain, across the blood-brain barrier.
Precisely. In some kids, that barrier is like a locked door. Leucovorin is the key that gets the folate inside. And the results from the preliminary studies were startling.
I read about the double-blind study. There was an 8-year-old boy, nonverbal his whole life, 2 weeks on this stuff, and he starts speaking in full sentences.
That's the report. And overall, 67% of the treated children saw significant improvements in language.
That sounds miraculous, but
Yeah.
I hear your expert voice warming up. There's always a catch with these headlines.
The catch is the scale. The approval was based on a collection of small case studies, maybe 40 or so. It wasn't a massive 1,000-person trial.
Ah, okay. That's a very small sample size.
And that's why organizations like the Autism Science Foundation and Autism Speaks have been very cautious. Andy Shih from Autism Speaks basically said, don't get too excited yet.
So it's not a magic pill for everyone.
It likely only works for the specific genetic subset that has this folate issue.
Cautious optimism.
Yeah.
Got it. Well, if we want to talk about the real future is now stuff, we have to talk about the UCSF and MIT study involving CRISPR.
This is arguably the biggest leap forward we've seen.
Usually when I hear CRISPR, I think gene editing,
Hmm.
like cutting and pasting DNA. I think about Gattaca or Jurassic Park.
That's the traditional way, yes. But this new technique is called CRISPR activation, or CRISPR. They aren't cutting anything. They aren't deleting genes.
So what are they doing?
Imagine you have a stereo system with 2 speakers. One speaker is broken, that's the mutated gene. The other speaker works, but it's too quiet to fill the room.
Okay, that's a condition called haploinsufficiency, right? One speaker's blown out.
Exactly. CRISPR is like a volume knob for that one good speaker. It amplifies the healthy gene, specifically the SCN2A gene in this study, to make up for the broken one.
So it just turns up the volume on the good DNA.
Precisely. And in the lab models, it restored brain connectivity. It stopped the seizures.
It's like Star Trek medical bays. Oh, let me just amplify your gene expression, Ensign.
We aren't quite at Star Trek levels, but we are closer than we have ever been. It suggests that for certain genetic types of autism, we might be able to treat the root cause without ever risking a cut to the genome.
That is incredible.
Yeah,
But we can't fix everything with biology. We have to live in the real world. We can't just wait for gene therapy. We need tools now.
right. And that brings us to the intersection of tech and society. Because while we wait for these medical treatments, people need support today, and technology is filling that gap.
I was looking at this VR platform called Florio.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. It uses virtual reality to let autistic kids practice scary, real-world stuff.
Like crossing a busy street or interacting with a police officer, handling a crowded grocery store. It's a safe sandbox.
Right. If you get overwhelmed, you just take off the headset. No
Yeah,
danger.
exactly. And it's not just VR. The MIT Media Lab is doing stuff with AI robots that can read facial expressions.
Wow.
Yes. These robots personalize therapy in real time. They can detect if a child is getting bored or frustrated by analyzing microexpressions, and then they adapt the lesson.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
But I want to pivot for a second. We've been talking a lot about fixing symptoms, quieting the bouncer, amplifying the genes, but there is a huge movement, the neurodiversity movement, that says, hey, maybe we aren't broken.
And that is a crucial perspective. The neurodiversity paradigm views autism not as a disease to be cured, but as a natural variation. And with that variation come incredible strengths.
We call them spiky profiles, right? Maybe you struggle with small talk, but you have incredible hyperfocus.
Exactly. Pattern recognition, systematic thinking, attention to detail.
It's the Sherlock Holmes way of thinking. He might be rude to the police inspector, but he noticed the mud on the suspect's shoe that solved the case.
And many autistic individuals have what we call savant abilities, extraordinary skills in math, music, memory. But even without being a savant, that ability to deep dive into a topic is a superpower in the right environment.
In the right environment being the key phrase. Because when we look at the adult outcomes, the stats are sobering. We have to face the hard truths.
They are. The unemployment rate for autistic adults is estimated at around 85%.
85%. That is a staggering waste of human potential. That's a lot of Sherlock Holmeses sitting at home.
It is. And even more tragic is the mental health toll. Autistic individuals are 3 times more likely to attempt suicide than the general population.
3 times.
And for autistic females, the risk of self-harm is even higher.
And is that because of the autism itself? Or is it the world they're living in?
Most experts argue it's the lack of support and the burnout from masking. It's the exhaustion of trying to fit a square peg into a round hole every single day.
It's the Clark Kent problem again. Carrying the weight of the world while pretending to be normal.
Exactly. So all these breakthroughs, CRISPR, leucovorin, AI, they're wonderful. But if we don't fix the societal acceptance part, the employment part, we're only solving half the puzzle.
So let's zoom out. We've covered a lot of ground today. What's the synthesis here?
I think there are 3 big takeaways. First, the landscape has changed. Autism is a massive, growing spectrum 1 in 31 kids, and we're finally starting to see the women who have been hiding in plain sight.
Right. And second, we are in the golden age of biology. We're moving from guessing to precision.
Whether it's giving folate to the brain, quieting the thalamus with epilepsy drugs, or, turning up the volume on genes with CRISPR.
And third,
Technology and society are slowly catching up. VR and AI are new tools, but the neurodiversity movement is reminding us that the goal isn't to erase the autistic person.
right, the goal isn't to make them indistinguishable from their peers, which used to be the old controversial standard.
No, the goal is to support them in reaching their own goals, to reduce the disability, but keep the person.
It brings up a tension that I think we need to end on.
Mm.
We've talked about these incredible tools. We are getting very, very good at editing the hardware of the human brain.
We are moving from managing symptoms to altering biology.
But earlier, we talked about the spiky profile, the hyperfocus, the unique perspective.
The strengths that come with the struggle.
Exactly. So here's the question. With tools like CRISPR allowing us to amplify brain function, where do we draw the line between treating a disability and erasing a personality?
That's the ultimate question, isn't it?
If we cure the challenges, do we risk losing the unique strengths, the Sherlock Holmes insight that comes with them?
If we smooth out all the spikes, do we lose the genius?
Something to think about. Thank you so much for joining us in the Deep Dive Lab today and helping us unpack this massive stack of research.
Always a pleasure.
And to you listening, if you found value in this deep dive, make sure you subscribed. We've got more topics coming that explore the edges of science and humanity. We'll see you in the next one.